Hi guys, here's our social studies lesson for today. We are going over the wildlife in the 13 original colonies. So we're going to be looking at the animals, plants, and natural resources of the 13 original colonies. And we're going to start with the geographic features. That means the features of the actual land around and in the 13 colonies. So let's start here. So in colonial America, the geography affected the development of the colonies massively. If you think about how your neighborhood looks, the shape of your neighborhood is often dictated by what the land was like before houses were built there. Is there a river? Is there a mountain? Is there a hill? Is there a wash? These things affect how a colony is built. One example is in New England, the shipbuilding was a big industry because it had a ton of coastline, which means a lot of the New England colonies go right up to the ocean. And then in the southern colonies, they have a really long, warm growing season, which meant they could grow a lot of crops. So if we look here at the New England colonies, these are them highlighted in yellow here. You can see that there's a ton of colonies located right along the coastline here. There's a ton of land that jumps or butts right up to the ocean. And this geography allowed New England to start the industry of shipbuilding. The geography made that New England was one of the best places for shipbuilding because of all of the coastline. And it attracted a lot of foreigners to come and get jobs as a shipbuilder. Now let's look at the New England land influence. And what that means is the different types of surfaces that are available there in the New England colonies. So the geography there was affected, or it did affect the development because it's very, very rocky. If you look over here at the different types of land, you see shallow rock, which is like granite, and that's in blue. Logmont till, which is stony, really hard land to go into. And then you have sandy gravel, and you have sandy mud or almost clay-like. And then you have a mix. Oh, you hear my dog messing with his bowl right now. I'm so sorry. And then you also have marshlands here. Now, none of these terrains are very good for farming. So really the only crop they could grow there was corn. Let's move over to the middle colonies. And the middle colonies had a ton of rivers. You can kind of see them here in the map. There's these little blue lines. They come up from the ocean in here, and there's tons of rivers. And this opened up a lot of routes for trade among the colonies. So they could bring things from one settlement to another down the river. And that was a really big money-making aspect of the middle colonies, was the ability to trade goods. Now, if you look at the land influence of the middle colonies, they had a lot better soil than the New England colonies. Their growing season was longer, and they also had better types of soil, which allowed them to grow crops. And they could grow crops pretty much throughout the year. Now, our southern colonies had a lot of rivers, but they were more calm rivers, and they could trade goods as well. But they also had a much, much longer growing season than both the middle colonies and the New England colonies. And it's very, very warm here, which meant they could grow crops a lot longer than the other colonies could. Now, the land influence in the southern colonies, like I said, was really different. They had very, very fertile soil, which meant that lots of things grow very nicely in this region right here. And they grew a lot of cash crops, so things like cotton, tobacco, those types of things. I'm going to jump you over to a different website right here, and we are going to look at some early pictures of the animal life that was found in the areas of the 13 colonists, and these are drawings done by different scientists who were there at that time. So the first one you're going to see here is an alligator. Alligators were really fascinating to the European settlers because they didn't see them where they were from. So you can find lots of drawings or writings about these alligators. Now we're going to look at some drawings done by someone named Peter Kalm, and he was a Swedish botanist, which means he is a scientist who studies plants. And he was traveling down from the French Canadian colonies, and he kept track of all of the different animal life he ran into. So you can see he ran into a raccoon, and this is the drawing that he made of it. And he wrote down all the things he noticed about these animals too. So he said that they were mostly found in the dark, and they would run up to the streets almost like a domesticated animal, which means an animal that's kept as a pet to take food. And here we have the American polecat, which we know as a skunk now, and two different types of squirrels, a flying squirrel and a ground squirrel. And now on our next page, Peter Kalm, because he's a botanist, he is very interested in plants. So these are two of the types of, well, there's one type of melon and a type of squash that he noticed. And if you look at the watermelon he depicted here, you can see they look slightly different than the ones we're used to today. They just look different through different types of farming. And then he noted a squash right here that was really tasty that a lot of people grew. Now we're going to move to somebody else, and this is someone else who was in, or this was someone who was spending most of their time in the Georgia colony. And these are different animals that they noted there. So again, we have another flying squirrel, and then we have two types of birds, a red bird, which we now call a cardinal, and then a bluebird. And then back here with the alligator, I told you they were really fascinating to these settlers because they were not seen where they were from. And one thing that this person noticed is that the alligator served a purpose beyond being a predator. They actually helped one of the trees grow by eating and digesting the seeds of this tree. And I'm going to bring you down here. We're skipping a couple. Now we're looking at pictures that are kept in the University of Wisconsin Library by someone from the Carolina colonies before they split into two different colonies. I'm always amazed looking at these drawings because you can tell they're drawings, they're not perfect pictures, but they're done so, so well. And Carolina colonies are in the southern colonies, and here was a rattlesnake. This is something they also weren't used to seeing. And here's someone else named John Lawson. He's also from the Carolina colonies, and he is noting some of the wildlife he saw. Again, he's depicting the snakes. These aren't rattlesnakes, though. Um, they're different types of snakes. But then he also noted the buffalo. And the buffalo, like we've learned about, or the bison, were really important to the Native Americans who lived in these regions over here, but also became really fascinating to the colonists because of all of the things they could do with a bison. John Lawson also noticed that the Native Americans used the buffalo, how they could catch them, and what they used them for, which I think is pretty interesting. And also in the Carolina colonies, this man is also finding a possum as well as other snakes. There's one more that we're going to look at. So this was made by a British map maker named Herman Mole. And he made this really large illustration that showed a bunch of beavers constructing a dam, and it has Niagara Falls in the background. So we can tell this is in Niagara Falls is up between the border of New York and Canada. And he's showing all the beavers here, which I think is so funny that he would take his time to create such a large drawing of that. Okay, so I go back over here. So we've seen different types of animals, and we've looked at the geography of the 13 colonies. Now you're going to be finishing up your research, if you haven't already, on the animals of the 13 original colonies. It's there on your team's assignment. And tomorrow, Tuesday, we are going to start looking here. I'll pull up your at-home learning schedule. So starting Tuesday, we're going to start looking at farming in the colonies specifically, and you'll be doing some research on the colonial crops at that time. All right, guys, I will see you at 10:30.